He's an old head.
Youngins are really starting to get on my damn nerves.
He's a purveyor of nonsense. He's a Georgia high school coaching job influencer. His favorite Bible verse is, Jesus wept. He's the man of constant sorrow, Chris Lamb.
Yeah.
Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, and today I'm joined by Cherokee High School defensive coordinator and strength and conditioning coach Grant Myers. Coach, thanks for being with us today.
Coach, appreciate you having me on.
So, Coach, where did you grow up and go to school, and where did your football career start?
I am originally from Gwinnett County. I grew up in Snowville, Georgia, and went to Shiloh High School. After I graduated from Shiloh in 2006, was fortunate enough to be able to go play a little bit of college ball at Shorter in the infancy years of the program there. I was a member of the second team there, was there for 5 years, and then got into this coaching world.
Who was your high school coach?
So this funny story there. Robert Matthews was my high school coach my sophomore, junior, senior year. Bob Krieger was the coach my freshman year. And as I was graduating in the spring of 2006, that is when Nick Davis got there. And he and I joked that, if at 18 I had known that I would work for him for 8 years, I'd have told him then, Coach, you don't want this job. You want to go on and stay at Riverdale and see if, you can get that thing cooking or if something else pops up.
So that's how y'all actually met, was you were in high school.
I was in high school. He was coming in. I think I was the only outgoing senior that was still in football weights, because I knew I was going to play college ball. And so when he'd come in there and watch the guys that were underclassmen that I played with, I was still in there lifting and everything. And he and I'd talk, and lo and behold, 5-6 years later, I'm out there coaching ball for him.
That's awesome. So what position did you play?
I played linebacker and then moonlight a little bit on offense as tight end, H-back.
Did you play any other sports?
Yes, I also played baseball as well. Matt Champito, who is now the athletic director for North Gwinnett High School, was my baseball coach. And he had a very successful career there at Shiloh, then at Duluth High School, and then he got into the admin world and AD world at Central Gwinnett. Now he's at North Gwinnett.
So being a multi-sport athlete probably helped you out when you went and played at the college level.
Absolutely. And the other thing is football was always my favorite sport. That didn't change, but there are so many memories and moments and experiences that I gained in relationships through baseball that I wouldn't have otherwise. And I think we as adults, everybody talks about we want multi-sport athletes, well around our kids, especially football coaches. But not just in terms of getting the good kids to play everything, but also just creating experiences and moments that only can happen through that specific sport. We shortchange kids sometimes by not pitching that to them as well as just saying, well, it'll make you a better football player, it'll make you a better basketball player if you play more. No, how about we create some moments for these kids? Because at the end of the day, there's no rewind button for them to go back and do it over.
Right.
They get one shot at this thing. They got 4 years of it. And it's our job to try and create as memorable an experience as we can during those 4 years.
Absolutely. So what was your first coaching job out of college was that at Shiloh?
No, it was at Spalding. So funny story there with that. So I said Robert Matthews was my head coach, and he is off the Jeff Herron tree. He was on Coach Herron's staff at Oconee County. He went down and did, I think, a couple years with him at Camden, and then he came up to Gwinnett County. He was at North Gwinnett and then at Shiloh. But he was off Coach Herron's tree, and he had set me up in the spring of my senior year at Shorter with Coach Herron. I'd gone down to Camden, interviewed, was offered a position. Well, this is in the spring of 2011, where we're just kind of overcoming some of the reduction in forces. The teaching profession, there are a few more jobs starting to open up. But unfortunately for me, 2 days before I graduated from Shorter, Coach Heron called me up and told me that at the board meeting that night, that the position that I had interviewed for and been offered was going to be dissolved, and it was going to get the social studies spot that I would have been teaching was going to be absolved in the department there. And so back to the drawing board and square one.
And that happens.
Yep.
Which, I mean, you didn't know then, but over time you realize that
right.
That happens more often than people are aware of. And being a middle-aged coach, you ain't quite an old head yet, but you ain't a youngin'.
That's correct.
But as a middle-aged guy, you know that now. So you end up at Spalding.
Yep. I had never been to Griffin, Georgia before. That was back when every day you get on, the internet and you check the vent. You see what people are posting on the vent, jobs. Twitter was not the place to look for a job board. That was back in the day of the vent. So I'm checking that. And a couple weeks after I graduated, I saw that Spalding High School in Griffin, Georgia was looking for linebackers coach and had a social studies position, and to send your information, resume, cover letter to Nick Davis and Amon Tinker. And so I did that, went down and interviewed with those guys, and the rest was history.
Well, that's two good ones for sure. I had Nick
Absolutely.
on the other day, and he talked about, getting you on over there. So how were things over at Spalding? How did you enjoy that stay over there?
Man, it was awesome. We had some really good teams there. We had some bad teams. I think coaching there prepared me to be able to go coach at about any type of school in the state, because, there were some high socioeconomic kids there that are high maintenance in some ways. And then there are some really low socioeconomic kids that were there that we coached that are high maintenance in different ways. And so I think it prepared me. We had some really good players. We had some tough kids, people from Griffin, Georgia. I mean, they're so competitive. I was fortunate enough to meet my wife there. She's from Griffin, went to Spalding. She was coaching cheerleading at the time. And after a couple of years there, we started dating, and here we are now.
That's awesome. And so you got to work with Tink and Nick.
That's right.
I bet that was an experience, to say the least.
We had some big times. We had some big times.
Two high-intensity guys.
Yeah, very much so. My first 2 years working with, Nick and Tink prepared me for the rest of my career, just in terms of what was going to be asked of us, expectations, making sure that you were prepared, because if you weren't, you were going to get called out on the carpet for it. And that's something that I now very much appreciate, because you're seeing that less and less in our profession of guys being put on the spot if they're not getting the job done.
Oh, there's no doubt. I remember my second year coaching, my first varsity job, really, I was at Burke County with Nick, and I was coaching receivers. And at the time, I was so adamant about the kids understanding, I thought they really needed to know why and what and how and all this other stuff. So, we're in group time, and he looks over there, and I'm talking, in my mind, I'm teaching. And he's like, quit talking and rep. They need reps. And I'll never forget it. And from then on, I learned how to coach on the fly.
That's it. Coach on the run.
Coach on the run, because he was like, your time is valuable. Don't sit there and waste it talking. You got to be able to talk and rep. And and I wouldn't have, and he didn't wait till we got inside to say it either. It was, you are wasting daylight. And I needed
better
that.
have thick skin to work for Nick Davis, and you you better have thick skin to work with a Mon Tinker.
Ain't nothing personal. It's just business, baby.
That's right, baby.
So where did you go after Spalding?
So we were there 8 years. And when Nick decided to take the Fayette County job, I thought that I wanted to be the head coach of Spalding, that I wanted to be there and, just pick up where Nick left off. And I never interviewed for the position because it became pretty clear to me within, the first couple days that Nick had resigned and, told them that he was going to Fayette, that administration there was not interested in me being the head coach. They wanted something new and fresh. And I just picked up on that. And so I was planning on going to Fayette with him until a friend of mine reached out about possibly going up to Pickens. And, I'd been in one place for a long time. And so I went up there and interviewed with Jeff Nelson, who was the new head coach there, and Chris Parker, who you and I both, are mutual friends with. Chris was the county athletic director at the time, and he kind of sold me on just the place and the potential and the possibilities for growth there in the future. And went back down to Griffin, sat down with Nick, and we talked, and he said, you need to do that. Obviously I'd love for you to come with me, but you need to go somewhere else and do this somewhere else for your own personal growth. And I so appreciate him for that, because selfishly he could have kept me with him and I'd have never left, until I got a head job somewhere. But for him to do that speaks about his character.
Oh yeah. Cause you stay with one person for so long, all you know is what they know and their way of doing it. And it's good to get out and see. I mean, that's one thing, Allie Good picks on me all the time about having all the t-shirts. But what I can say is I have seen the cat skint a lot of different ways.
Yep.
And, you see how to do things and how not to do things. And you learn a lot of different things. And I just think that's a good thing. So you go up to Pickens as an assistant.
Yep.
And how was that?
They had just won the first region championship in school history the year before, won the first playoff game in school history the year before, had a lot coming back. Chris stepped down and retired, and there was still a good group coming back the following year. So we go there, and it is, after being at one place and around one type of kid, it was different in a lot of good ways. And it was different in some ways that I struggled with, as far as football not being that important to kids who are pretty good and who you got to depend on to win. And so that was strange for me. But I was really appreciative of that experience, and I enjoyed just a different perspective on football.
Yeah, going to the mountains is a heap different than being in Griffin.
Yes, it is.
You're there, you're an assistant. Did you leave and come back, or did you stay and take over? How did that go?
So that's another interesting bit. I stayed. Administration there decided that they wanted to go in a different direction from Coach Nelson. And I applied for the job and initially was not going to get it. They were going to offer it to someone else with a whole bunch of wins next to their name. And if you kind of know some of that, who that is. And he 1000% should have been given the job over me. I mean, our resumes, it ain't even in the same stratosphere. But also at the same time, I was in the mix and interviewing for another head coaching job, and I was offered it. And I did not accept that job, and thankfully so, because one day later I was offered the Pickens job because the guy that they initially offered it to backed out, pulled his name out in the 11th hour, and administration decided they wanted to give me a shot.
So you got your first head coaching job. Let's talk about that. All the what you thought you knew, what you didn't know. I mean, what's it like?
There's not enough time in the day to talk about. There's a whole lot of, if I was in charge, I'd do this, or if I was calling the shots, we'd do that. That's easy to say until you actually are in that big chair. I have said before that being a head football coach is a lot like being a parent. You can read all the self-help books. You can go to all the baby classes. You can watch all the YouTube and whatnot on how to raise a kid. But until that kid is sitting there looking at you, you're not ready. Well, it's the same thing as being a head football coach. You know, it is a living, breathing organism. That's what a football program is. There is no pause. There is no stop. It is always, you are on call all the time.
Yeah, that's one thing Nick said the other night was, y'all can get in your truck and go home and not worry about Pickens County football until the next day. My phone ain't never off.
Correct.
And that's something that you're not really prepared for.
Well, until you do it, you're not. And there's also no time for on-the-job training.
No, baptism by fire.
Correct. We did some good things in my time there. We did some things that if I had an opportunity to go back and do differently, I would have done totally different. It was an invaluable learning experience for me.
So you leave there, and now that's why you're at Cherokee now, right? That's
right. So, in my 3 years as head coach at Pickens, I had 3 different principals. And they're each one of them different in a myriad of ways, each one of them with some really good strengths, and each one of them with some things that also hurt some of the development of athletic programs just from inconsistency at the top of the, hierarchy in high school. When principal decided that he wanted to go a different direction after this season, I sat down and I really started assessing, one, do I want to try and be a head coach again and chase some jobs right now? My answer was no. I don't want to do that right now. I want to sit back, I want to reflect, and I want to make some improvements, both personally and professionally. The next thing I said is, okay, am I about to go and chase some jobs where if you wear that logo with that Nike polo or Adidas polo or Under Armour or whatever the hell it is, you automatically are going to have a chance at another head coaching job? And I said, I don't know. Because I was in discussions with several teams that have won state championships in the last 3 years, teams that, are considered one of the top 5 jobs in the state. But I also have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old little girl. My wife is very happy in her position. She's also in education. She is an academic instructional coach in Pickens at the 5-6 school. And it came down to me, do I want to uproot them from something that they're happy with right now? Do I want to go live on somebody's couch in middle South Georgia for the next 6 months and see my kids on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday before I go back wherever? Or do I want to sit down and become a better dad, a better husband, just a better family man? Because there are some things in that world that got put on the back burner being a head football coach. And so the opportunity to come on at Cherokee, which I live in the Cherokee school cluster. I cut my commute from 25 minutes going to Pickens every day to in the morning. If I catch no traffic lights, I can get there in about 8 minutes.
Wow.
That became very appealing to me, and the opportunity to do it at a 7A school. I'd never been anywhere but 3 or 4A. So having a chance to coach big football at a place that has been good, it's been cyclical, but there have been some really good teams that have come out of Cherokee. the region is good. Walton, state runner-up out of that region. North Cobb, perennial, really strong football program. That was very enticing to me. And then Coach Holly, the new head coach at Cherokee, he sold a pitch to me that was very flattering, and I appreciated. He said, Coach, I need somebody who has recently gone through what I'm about to go through. This is his first head coaching job. He said, you can be an invaluable resource for me because you've just done this. I said, well, look, here's what I can do. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I can tell you a whole lot of what not to do because I did that and screwed it up. Yeah. And so I can help you not screw it up.
Yeah, that's the truth. I mean, not saying in your case, but just all of us. It's a whole lot easier once you've done it to go, yes. Hey man, don't do that. And you don't mind saying it. There have been a couple times where I've said, hold on just a second. You need to go talk to that man over there because he's the head football coach, not I. Yeah. And here's the thing. That is gratifying, to just, it's nice to say, you know what, I'm going home because I'm going to go watch my oldest daughter gymnastics practice instead of going to watch the baseball game or the basketball game, Because you're expected to be there.
Coach, you're a figurehead and you're expected to be at stuff. Whether it is said or not, the expectation is for you to be highly involved. And while I still remain involved, it's not an obligation to do so.
Right. And that's a huge difference, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to want to be there. And I mean, not that you don't want to be there and see your kids, right. But when there's 4 basketball games or, 4 baseball games in a week and you've got to be at every one and people are like, well, y'all knew what you were signing up for. No. We're not getting paid for that.
Correct.
That's extra.
Correct.
And yeah, we get paid for 180 days, but we work 365.
That's right.
I spend more time with your kid than you do.
Yes.
So don't come at me about, and it's not like we're getting paid by the hour. Because I would love to get paid my hourly rate. Because I had to figure it out the other day, and it was rather impressive. And I was like, man, I wish I got paid by the hour. But, it doesn't work out that way. So now you're the defensive coordinator and strength and conditioning coach. So doing things that you really enjoy doing.
Absolutely. That's one thing that this whole process has been good for me is I have been able to get back doing things that I very much enjoy. Being in the weight room, working with kids, seeing kids push and strain and strive for a common goal. And then football wise, just simply worrying about how are we going to get some stops? How are we going to create some turnovers? What are some things that we need to do to improve on tackling? Rather than the entire structure of the organization from top to bottom.
Well, and you can have a different kind of relationship with the kids too when you're not the head ball coach.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can be more their buddy. I mean, I'm not saying that, that everybody's got that in them, but I mean, you can cut up with them a little bit more when you're not the supreme commander.
That's correct. And the other thing is, you don't have to be as diplomatic with the adults.
No.
If, that's one thing that in my tenure as a head coach at Pickens, I wish I had not been as diplomatic with people. I wish I had said a little bit more, no, this is what's about to happen, and that be that, rather than trying to work with people. Because at the end of the day, working with people, well, those same people might get your ass fired.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
you don't have to do that when you're an assistant.
No. And I mean, you can devil's advocate all the time. And, the kids are, I coached offensive line and I remember they get so frustrated with Brandon. They get so mad and I'd be like, man, I don't know what's wrong with him, but we're going to do we're going to do what we're supposed to do. I tell you what, let's do what we're supposed to do so he ain't mad no more. How about that? So you start trying to mind trick them into doing what you need them to do. And, we had our own little things that we would say about him that, we had little nicknames for him or whatever. And, you get to have a different kind of relationship with them that you wouldn't have that with them if you were the head coach, because they'd be over there talking about you.
Correct.
And it just makes it easier for you to put out fires that the head coach doesn't have to deal with. You can be the bridge between him and the kids when need be.
Because
his relationship with them is going to be special too, and it's something that you can't have either.
Exactly. I mean, that's another thing you bring up a good point with that is the relationship aspect is different from the head coach to being an assistant, but also once you go back to being an assistant from being a head coach, you're a lot better of an assistant because you know all the BS that he's got to do that you don't want to do, and you're glad you don't have to do. But that means that you as the assistant, and anytime we have staff meeting, we have 6:45 staff meeting every Monday morning. Coach Holly goes over the agenda for the week, anything coming up, boom, boom, boom. When he's done, I make sure to relay to the other assistants, guys, we need to keep as much bullshit off his plate as possible because there are certain things that only he can take care of. So we need to take care of all the stuff that he doesn't have to, that we can.
Correct. Absolutely.
We need to make sure that we do a good job of hanging these jerseys, folding this laundry, straightening up this equipment shed, whatever it may be, picking this kid up for workouts, whatever it may be, because we can't sit in there on the Booster Club, budget meeting. We can't sit in there and figure out how we're going to get vertical alignment with the 5th grade team to the 6th grade team. That's not our job. We can't do that. So let's do a great job of all the things we can do so he doesn't have to worry about them.
So with that being said, now that you're middle-age approaching old head, what's your take on the high school coaching profession and young coaches and how they do and what they think and our place in it?
So again, interesting that you bring that up. There were a couple times last season at Pickens that I just caught myself in a strange, just in between world. The staff I had, there was 5 guys in their 20s. There were 4 guys in their 40s. There were 2 guys in their 50s, and there's me, 35. So it was a weird chance for me to look at things from a different perspective, in that nobody's right there in that midpoint. And I see the younger coaches, how they approach stuff, and I see the older guys, how they approach stuff. One thing that my fear for our profession with the younger guys is, because there is such an abundance of knowledge out there and resources for them to learn football, scheme, and whatnot, that sweat equity is going to be gone by the wayside. In terms of everybody got turf practice or turf fields now. Nobody knows how to pull a string and pop a line anymore. Chris putting out his resources there that you can just figure out, okay, this is my 365-day football calendar, instead of having to learn things through trial and error and those same experiences that talked about as a young coach with Nick and Tink, 10, 12 years ago. I think some of that may be lost, and it's a shame, because some of that's what makes this profession fun, is just the grit and determination you have to get the job done right. Technology is fantastic, and it is an invaluable resource. However, because it's so readily available, I think just sitting down and clinicking and chalk talking and learning ball through getting on a whiteboard is not something that you see as often in field houses as you did, 10, 15 years ago.
No, and they don't ask.
Well, it's because they already know.
Right, exactly. Or they think they know.
Correct.
They
and I was one of those guys. I was as guilty as anybody of that. So I don't need to be, up on high horse right now that some of this needs to be self-deprecating. Like I was that young coach that knew better. Well, after my experiences over the last few years, I don't know if I did.
Well, I watched somebody put something on Twitter the other day, and it was somebody running a veer, and it was play action. It was what we used to call 112 Z slant, and it was just off the inside veer slant, and they were like, "Oh, look, it was an RPO in 1981." And I was like, "You get from here? You mean that wasn't just invented?" You know, there's nothing that's been done. There's nothing that's going on. There's nothing that hasn't already been done. It just has new names, new words, new shiny things to it. But these guys,
Sims and creepers.
Yeah, these guys get on here and see all this stuff, and they're, you know, instead of going, "Coach, have you ever seen this? How did y'all stop this?" I remember my first head coaching job was in North Carolina, and I saw somebody run 44 daylight, the old H play, second back through, whatever you want to call it, double dive out of the bone. I didn't know what it was. I knew it looked like they were reading the midline and then deciding if they were going, it was like a double read or whatever. I didn't know what it was. So I called Coach Milt Miller, and I was like, "Coach," he just started laughing at me. And they weren't running it out of the wishbone. They were running it out of flex. And I was like, "Coach, I have no idea what I'm looking at." And he just started laughing, and he said, "Well, that's because you didn't grow up running the wishbone, but this is what it is." And he showed it to me. I didn't mind asking, you know, but there wasn't Twitter back there. You didn't have, you know, all the resources to see. I mean, you had to call people and go, "What is this?"
Yep.
You know, what am I looking at? But I think that's still something you need to know, because there's certain things that you're going to come across that there are no, like you said, there isn't a playbook. There isn't a YouTube video. There isn't a, you know, like you said, being a parent. I mean, when you come home and grandmama and granddaddy finally go home after a couple of days, and that joker looks at you and you're like, okay.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. And the other thing about that is the relationship aspect. Like, to be good in this profession, you need to know people. It doesn't matter how much you know, but you need to know people so that they can vouch for you. And some of that comes from meeting people, sitting down, asking questions, you know, hanging out at the clinic, sitting there, you know, just talking, whether it be philosophy or getting on there and X and Oing it on a bar napkin. That needs to happen so that you have a network. Otherwise, you're just going to be, you know, probably a really good coach at one place forever. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you're limiting yourself to just being that.
Right. I remember at the clinic one year, I was having a hard time with my linebackers taking false steps. And I couldn't figure out, you know, I thought I had tried everything. So I called Sean Pope, and I pulled him off to the side in the lobby. And I was like, "Hey man, do you mind going over some stuff with me, you know, whenever you get a chance?" And we just ended up doing it in a room on a mirror. And, you know, he's gave me some real simple drills that fixed it. And, you know, he wasn't a head coach at the time. He was my age defensive coordinator. And, you know, just doing stuff like that, you know, just pulling people off to the side and going, "Hey, help me out," or "Will you help me out?"
Yeah.
And that helped a lot.
Well, and it's what's fun about this profession, you know, about what we do is making those relationships where you may only see a guy once or twice a year, but when you see him, you know, that's your buddy. And, you know, that's one of the things that this game provides for us.
Well, it's experiences, like you said earlier. I mean, it isn't just for kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's our experiences and relationships. I mean, your relationship that you forged with Coach Davis going out at Shiloh ends up being a 8-year stint, you know, working for him.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny, the day that it's the day that administration want to make a change for me up at Pickens is also the day that Nick resigned at Fayette. I mean, our paths have just always been kind of connected in some way. You know, I talked to him that night for an hour and a half. You know, he and I still speak once a week, you know, for extended period of time. And it just shows you how small the world is too.
It really does. And, when the job boards and stuff came open, so I'm going to change gears completely, but job boards came open and, used to be, they wouldn't post people's initials until it got to the interviews and final 5 or final 3 or whoever. And then, years went by and I get bored. So I decided one year I was going to use famous people's names and see if people could figure out the initials. And you became Gucci Mane.
This is correct. That's right. So I tell you what else, and this will be a little bit of hotness. When the job board ain't near as interesting, when the job you just had is posted up on that sumbitch, the job board is nowhere near as interesting when you see the job that you used to have posted there. Yeah. Muhammad Abdelatif is one of my best friends, and we've had just similar experiences there. We played together shorter, and we've been close friends, since we were in the linebacker room together. And a couple of weeks ago, we were talking. He's at Rome now. He is coach secondary and runs weight room. So I'm bouncing some weight room ideas off of him, being back in there. And we got down that rabbit hole. And I said, Mo, I didn't really realize this, but you probably could have told me that you don't really care too much about who's getting what job once your job that you just had is one of the ones people are talking about. He said, yeah, my boy, it's a weird feeling.
Yeah. It's like somebody told me the other night about one of the ones that's still open. They were telling me something and they were like, if you care. And I was like, I don't. Nope. And to be honest with you, I don't really care about the ones that do get posted. I just happen to have that information and
that's right.
I'll share it and I'll put my 2 cents worth into it. And it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. 'Cause like I said before, everybody's going to take all these jobs. Somebody's going to fill them.
Yeah, they're playing football next year at that school regardless.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to stop just because so-and-so's not there anymore. Or, they're going to find somebody to go out there with them. And so that's been interesting. I just didn't know, I had fun with that because that made it a lot of fun. And somebody was like, I think it might have been you, was like, Gucci Mane, really? And I was like, oh no, I needed a GM. And that when I Googled famous GMs, that was like one of the ones that popped up that I thought was really funny. So
that's me, baby.
I throw that one out there. So when we went to the clinic last year, somebody asked me, they're like, hey, what are we doing? I was like, well, Grant wants to meet, wherever, eat, hang out, do whatever before, this thing gets kicked off really. And somebody's like, Gucci Mane? Yeah. Let's go hang out with Gucci Mane.
That's it. And I'll tell you that's another thing that I've been known to be a clinic all-star. For those couple days in February, I'll run hard. But that's something else that just going through this, last few months, maybe need to reevaluate some things.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were raised by the old heads that said, play hard, work hard, play harder. And those 2 days or 3 days or however long we were at the clinic was really the only 2 or 3 days we had off. Because the rest of the time you were working.
Yep.
And, now, of course, I'm too old. If I do go, I'll go hang out and laugh at, Lil Devo or whoever and stuff like that. But I don't partake like me and Kevin W. Stevenson used to do back in the old days, back when you were still in high school.
Yeah.
But it's just refreshing to listen to somebody that's in the next group, as I call it. I talked to somebody yesterday and said that, your age group, your group is the next group. Is the next group after us. And there's a big group of us that are about to retire and be gone, and it's going to be left with y'all if you want to do it, which y'all might not. Y'all might say, no, I'm good. Just go and let those young ones have it and, see how that goes.
So yeah, you're right though. It's a weird, not weird. It's an interesting point right now in that midpoint of my career. Also going from being, you couldn't have told me 3 years ago that I wasn't going to be a head coach for 20 straight years and retire in the state of Georgia and then go to Tennessee or private or whatever. But life had other plans. And so being at the midpoint and going back to being an assistant has been a very gratifying experience in terms of self-assessment and then assessing our profession and things that we need to do a better job of collectively to make sure this thing rolls right.
Well, and it's spring break and you're getting to spend it with your daughters.
Correct.
You're not having to worry about, nobody's going to call you and ask you, something crazy about, the head coach might, but nobody in the community is.
No. Well, here's what's not happening. What's not happening is what happened on December 26th of 2022 when I'm sitting there putting together some of my daughter's, Christmas presents, and I get a call and said, "Hey, you need to get up to the field house. There's ankle deep of water. A pipe's burst here, and the field house is flooded." Well, that ain't happening.
Hey, you got the wrong number, Jack.
Yeah, that ain't happening. My name is Grant Myers, defensive coordinator, not head coach.
Yeah, you called the wrong cat. Then bad phone calls to have to field. Yes,
and it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. That there are certain things that, all right, you got to go do it. That's the price you pay to play the game. When I was leaving Pickens, I finished up first semester there and then started second semester at Cherokee. That was a phrase that I started using is, "Hey man, that's the price you pay to play the game." When you sign up for being a head coach, there's certain things that you sign up for. Some of them are really good. You get paid more. You get a certain level of respect that you don't get as an assistant. But there's also some drawbacks that go with it. So just know what you're signing up for.
Well, I'm sure that whenever you get ready and whenever you decide to, you can sit in the big chair again and learning from your previous experience, it'll be better and you'll make better decisions and be at a better place or equitable place. And if that's what you decide to do, or you may just decide, hey, I kind of like running the weight room and running the defense.
No, that's right.
You got time.
Right now, I'm just enjoying this. I'm enjoying the challenges that we've got. I'm enjoying being around the kids. I'm enjoying being an asset to the program in terms of utilizing some of those experiences to help somebody else do it better.
And coming in new with the staff too, that's fun too. Cause
yes, it is.
Everything's new for everybody.
It's new for everybody. And there's a honeymoon phase and, you can do no wrong and say no wrong and everything's the best ever. Even if it might be the exact same way as it was before, it's just new. So that part's been fun. The guys there at Cherokee that are staying, from the previous staff have been great for me and Coach Holly. The guys that are leaving, they could have been, serious pains, but they haven't been. Davis Harvey and Josh Shaw and Brett O'Buck, those guys have all been really good to us. And that's another part of the profession that needs to continue is not making it personal and helping one another because it's what's best for the kids.
Right. Absolutely. And it's not personal.
No, it's business.
Yeah. I've had, people, well, this guy's moved around a lot. Well, yeah, because for a long time, if the head coach got let go in Central and South Georgia, especially, new guy comes in, there was no question. They didn't care how good you were in the classroom. They didn't care how many times you were at church during the week. We need your teaching slot, coach, for the new coach. You can be non-renewed or you can resign. And that first time you're like, well, what does non-renewed mean? You start looking around, you're like, what does that mean? And one of the old ones has to tell you, You need to resign, because if that shows up on your record, they're not going to hire you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've done a good, they don't care, son. They need your job to give to the new guys group.
Because he's got to bring his guys.
Right. And I remember the first couple of times I was like, man, this is some bull crap right here now. I can't keep moving around all over the place. And then you realize that's just the nature of the beast down here.
Yeah.
And that's when we moved up to the Atlanta area, because at least if something crazy happened up there, you didn't have to move houses. You know, you just stay in one house and you could go work somewhere else if you wanted to. And plus two up there, you know, if you did your job in the classroom, they weren't going to run you off.
Correct.
Where in Central and South Georgia, man, none of that matters.
Nope.
It's like varsity blues, Friday night lights, college football. I mean, that's just what it is.
It's a business.
Yes. And it ain't personal. And, you know, now you're getting to a point where you've got administrators who weren't ball coaches. When you do try to go somewhere, they look at you and like, man, this guy sure has moved around a lot. Well, if you'd actually let him explain what happened, it'll make sense to you. Or, you know, maybe not, because you're never coached.
Because you haven't been in that arena.
Yeah. Where, you know, me and you would go, well, that makes sense.
Yep.
So, because that's just, you know, nature of the beast. But it's changed, and you got in the middle of the tail end of the way things used to be.
Yes. And
then now the transition into whatever it's going to be.
Well, I tell you, this will kind of be a good segue into that right there. I did my first 5 high school football games as a coach. We did not have huddle. And when we got huddle after that 5th game, that changed everything. I'm not sitting there in my apartment with a DVD, you know, grading film anymore. I'm sitting there with the laptop or I'm watching it on my phone or on a tablet, you know, and that's technology. Huddle's just the example right there, but how we have become so technology dependent, and it's made the game better, but we've also lost some of the interpersonal aspects of it.
Oh, yeah. You hear about people not meeting on Sundays anymore. Oh, we'll just do a Zoom meeting, or, you know, we'll just do this. And I'm like, I'm cool with that, because I can work. I mean, I'm all about doing what I got to do and not sitting around here listening to whatever. But you're missing out on that part of it.
Well, you're missing out on the fellowshipping and the relationship aspect and the camaraderie and all that.
And there's stuff that needs to be done that the head coach doesn't need to be doing that the rest of us can do, as you alluded to earlier.
Yeah. Like, while we're meeting on Sunday, hey, roll this laundry, hang these jerseys.
Go check the field, make sure everything's where it's supposed to be, you know, that kind of stuff. But I can't wait. You know, I got 5 years to go. I'm sure within that 5 years, if you so desire, you'll be back in a big chair. And I'm so glad that I've gotten to meet you and watch one of the rising stars. We always pointed at you and said, he's going to be one, and you have become one. And I'm glad that everything's worked out so far for you after your first head coaching job. And I can't wait to see how you and your other guys your age, where y'all take this thing.
Well, I appreciate it. And I very much have enjoyed, you know, our friendship and us, you know, getting linked up. And, you know, I appreciate just how you've connected countless different coaches, you know, in our state with one another. Because that's what's fun about this profession is those relationships. And, you know, the fact that you're down in Hawkinsville, Georgia, and I'm sitting up here in Canton, Georgia right now, and we're having this conversation on spring break, you know, that's what this game does for you.
Oh yeah. And just, you know, the 7 degrees of separation where I started more or less my career with Nick Davis and you started, we're on the same tree. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of like we're cousins.
That's right.
I'm the older cousin, and, you know, you're like, oh, there's that old idiot cousin right there. Don't do what he did. And, you know, that's cool that you realize that there's really a small group of people that really keep the thing going, you know, that can get you jobs in other places and help you out. And I know Tink and Nick and Franklin and all those Isaac and all those guys, they've always been really good to me, and they always helped me out. And I always knew that once I got to a place where I would make sure I could help other people too. So that's all I try to do. Plus, it's fun talking to y'all. I like hearing y'all stories.
No, that's exactly right. All those guys have been great. And I'll tell you, there's two people, that in the coaching world, that if anyone has something negative to say about them, I'll be fighting mad, and that is Nick Davis and Chris Parker. During my exit from Pickens, Chris could not have been any more helpful, supportive, and he didn't have to be. And that speaks to his character, and just how he treated me. And I will forever be indebted to him, and I'm appreciative of him for that. Nick gave me my first opportunity and then made me his DC when I was 25 years old, far before I was ready. And so I'm forever grateful for that opportunity as well.
Well, that's awesome. Coach, I appreciate you being on with us today. I'm sure we will be talking again here shortly in the near future. And
Absolutely.
I hope you enjoy the rest of your spring break. And if you ever need anything, or if there's ever anything I can ever do for you, I will.
I appreciate you, Doctor.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Yeah.